You're watching the number one podcast in the YouTube wrestling community, and I'm your host, Jean-Paul Leek, and this is Rope Break. Tuesday morning, family. Hope you're all doing fantastic, and you know what that means. We're here for the Monday Night Raw review. And this show, it promised to be a big show. The return of Shane O'Mac, a new faction debuting on Monday Night Raw. We were going to see Apollo Crews versus MVP. That matchup was supposed to take place at Extreme Rules. We're getting tonight, or last night rather, so it was a big show, and it definitely was a newsworthy show with everything that came from it. But did it live up to the hype? Spoiler alert, no, it didn't. But let's go right into the show. But before that, always hope you guys are doing well. You know, we always looking out for the family. So Raw opens up. They announced that Randy Orton will come face-to-face with Drew McIntyre later tonight. And then, you know, as they're talking, kind of explaining everything that's going to happen with Raw, boom, the lights go out. They come back on. They're like, oh, what the hell is that? They're like, oh, we apologize for the technical difficulties. So then Apollo Crews, he makes his way to the ring. Like I said, he returns tonight, so that was cool for him. And the lights go out again, and they're like, oh, it must be the weather here. You know, we're experiencing some, you know, they're just trying to cover it up, make excuses. But it's all obviously storyline. And then Philip says, like I said, it's the result of the weather. And then before the match, MVP, he comes out. He says he's the real United States champion. Apollo Crews didn't even show up to the title defense at Extreme Rules. And he tells Apollo that after tonight, their beef is over. He can go back hanging out with Cedric and Ricochet and catering. Like, after tonight, when I beat you and prove myself to be the rightful and the real United States champion, you know, you can get out of here, little boy. So then we get right into the match, and I mean, this match was good. This match was probably one of the highlights of the show for me. Apollo Crews is a hell of a wrestler. MVP can still go for a guy in his age. You know, I've been really, really impressed with MVP in this run with the Hurt Business. You know, I've said it before. I was a little iffy when he came back after the Royal Rumble and was just doing the MVP lounge. But this, since he, you know, got his staple going, and, you know, maybe this was the new staple that was promised, even though we've had this for a couple weeks. But, you know, MVP's really been doing good in this role since returning. So I couldn't be happier with, you know, either of these two guys and the match that they put on. And it was a fantastic match. Like I said, Apollo Crews looked really good. And, you know, MVP looked good. And, of course, you know, the winner of this thing, you know, we predicted, Juan and I, if we're going to go back in the archives here a little bit. We said that MVP, we picked him to win. We said, you know, the new belt, you really got to get him over. Sorry, Apollo. But that's maybe what Vince McMahon would thought. And they are trying to push the younger talent, you know, so they say. So the winner of this thing, like I said, towards the end of this, Apollo, he is whipped into the corner, but he avoids a kick, hits a flying crossbody. Apollo lifts up MVP and winds up getting German suplexed out of nowhere, but then Apollo hits his toss power bomb for the win. So, you know, he hits that I love that new finisher that he's been doing, that toss power bomb. So boom, of course he retains. It was obviously the right choice, you know, even though we said that MVP is really legit in this, you know, his return, you know, Apollo Crews is the right winner. You got to keep him going. So then, you know, he has both the belts. He's like, you know, this is legit. But then Lashley comes out. He grabs him with the full Nelson. Apollo fights him off. And then he clasps his hands and retreats with his title belts. And then Charlie Caruso interviews him backstage. And this is the one thing I don't like. This guy's always cheesing. It's like he remembers a joke somebody told him, and he's just constantly trying not to laugh. He's always smiling real big. And it's like, I get it. You're the baby face, and maybe that's your character. Just you're happy. You're thankful for all the opportunities and this and that. But it's like, you got to get a little bit more personality than just, oh, I'm thankful and I've trained hard. Like, that's not a personality. Like, you know, let's get a little bit of character here. But when he's with Charlie backstage, he says that Lashley has strength unlike anyone, and it's because of his full Nelson. He was able because of the full Nelson, he was out of action for weeks, which is obviously just the storyline thing. He really had COVID-19. So he said during that time, he had to watch MVP parade around pretending he was the U.S. champ. And his kids asked, you know, why is he the U.S. champ? But I thought you were the U.S. champ. And he said now he's the undisputed United States champion. And, you know, MVP, you know, he's done. He's like, hey, you know, you paid for this new belt. It looks good. I appreciate it because now it's mine. So that was a little cool, that little dig in there. Like I said, let's get more of that instead of this just smiling and like, ooh, I'm happy to be here and stuff. But besides that, Apollo, legit, happy for him. So great stuff there. So then still out at ringside, MVP, he gets on the microphone and he yells at the three announcers and he says that the lights going out distracted him and that this is some unsafe working environments. And then he says Apollo's not the real champ. If he is happy to steal the title under such circumstances, MVP says he doesn't care about Apollo's wife or his kids. The only thing he cares about is getting a rematch, and he wants that at SummerSlam. Apparently, nobody informed him that the rematch clause doesn't exist, but Apollo accepted later on in the night, so I guess we're going to get it. Then Sasha Banks and Bayley, they're backstage, and they're slapping their titles together, doing the cling, cling that they always do. And, we'll be hearing from them upcoming. And then we see a darkened room backstage with a bodyguard standing in front. And the announcers say that whatever is inside is the brainchild of Shane McMahon. Ooh, so we're going to figure out what this is. Then we get Sarah Schreiber. She interviews Bayley and Sasha backstage, and she asks if they'll be defending, any or all of their titles at SummerSlam. And Bayley says that Sarah's just so boring, and she says that instead they've brought some footage with them, and it's like an over-the-top, crazy tribute video, the In a World. It's like one of those like hokey, bullshit things. So it just shows, some highlights from them. And then it shows Asuka at the end of this video, and she says that she's going to get revenge and it'll be very sweet and this and that. And then it cuts back, to Sasha and Bayley, and they're like, "What the hell?" They're like, "This is bullshit. Like, who put this thing together? This is so dumb." So then Shayna comes up and she says that Sasha, she just sneaked her way into Monday Night Raw, somehow just stole the women's championship. But it's been Shayna she's like, "I've been waiting in line, for my chance, and you just sneak in here, and no. I'm not waiting anymore. I've waited long enough." So then she drops Sasha with a right hand and just like, "See you later." And that's what I like, because Bayley didn't go to fight her. Bayley already knows, like, hey, this chick kicked my ass, no thanks, I'm good. So she's just like, "Oh, Sasha, are you all right?" And then, Shayna just walks off, because that's what I like. Shayna being a badass, that's what we need to see more of. So then we get Kevin Owens. He's backstage, and he gets stopped by the Iconics. They ask him if they can be on the KO show, and he says he loves them. He loves Australia, and that they'd make great guests. But tonight, he already has plans because, he actually plans these in advance. Like, ooh, shot at WWE. So that, that's legit. And then Owens makes his way to the ring. So then as Kevin Owens is in the ring, he does the KO show. And then he said that there's lots of interesting things happening tonight, including the return of Shane McMahon, something he has a lot of thoughts on because, the last time we saw Shane McMahon, I believe, was in that ladder match for the contract or whatever the hell that was with Kevin Owens. So then his mic keeps cutting in and out. He's hitting the mic. They're really playing up the technical difficulties thing here tonight. So he introduces his first, you could say, special guest, Ruby Riott. So Owens says that she's beaten Peyton Royce, and that was her first win in a while. And it made her, quite emotional after the match. And Ruby says that it's no secret that she hasn't had the best of luck. And since she came back, all the Iconics have done, they pretty much just beat her down and they just want to embarrass her. And that Ruby says she's been dealing with toxic women like them her whole life. And she finally slapped the bullshit out of them last week. And the only thing that could have made it better is if Liv would have been at her side. And then Owens gets excited and he's like, well, hey, I do actually have Liv Morgan right here. So he brings her out. So Liv comes to the ring. She looks kind of pissed. Owens says, hey, thanks for coming. And Ruby asked her to listen, and Owens asked her to be here. So let's hear it. Owens says that he asked them to be here because he saw them when they started in WWE, with Sarah. He mentioned her, so that was legit. He's like, you guys had something special. And, they shouldn't let something special like that go to waste. They bring out the best in each other. And he speaks from experience because he said he's done a lot of shitty things to his friends, Sami Zayn, and, just to try to forward his career. But he's like, was it really worth it? No, because I ended up jobbing to Goldberg and jobbing to Roman Reigns and all these other people. So no, it wasn't worth it. Sammy, brother, I'm sorry. But then Ruby says that when she comes back, she thought everything was going to be different. She thought everything was going to be the same, but it was completely different, including Liv. She said when she came back, Liv was thriving. She was coming into her own, and she felt like maybe Liv didn't need her anymore, and that hurt. And then Liv beat her twice, and it made it true. Liv, moved on. And she said that this is the world she came back to. No Sarah, no Liv. So then she ended up taking it out on Liv. But everybody, and then, she looks at her tattoo because her, Liv, and Sarah all have a tattoo for when they debut together as a group. And then she reminded them that their lives changed and that she just wants another chance for the Riot Squad to be stronger than ever. So then as they're having this, this great moment, Iconics. So they come out, they make their way down to the ramp. Peyton says that everyone's so sick of hearing them babble on. Roy says that Liv should have stayed in the bathtub. Kay, I agree with that. And then Kay says that we're all sick of Ruby's social media posts, which I don't know. I don't follow her on social media, I'm not sick of her posts. Keep posting, Ruby. And then Peyton says that they have dominated the tag team division and conquered WrestleMania, and they're simply better than them. If you look BFF up in the dictionary, you see them. Liv says they're right. Her and Ruby aren't friends or iconic, but there's one thing they can agree on. No one starts a riot better than them. So then Roy says that they have nothing on them and that they should go right now. Owens says that they have technical difficulties for the Iconics alone. So Peyton slaps him, asks him if that was necessary. Kay slaps him also. He turns to Ruby and Liv. He's like, hey, can you guys get some help here, please? So then, they start beating up the Iconics as we go to commercial break. So, of course, what does that lead into? That leads into a match with Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan versus the Iconics. And, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to kind of figure out how this is going to go. You're not going to have this emotional thing, Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan. It was great to hear them go back and forth. But unless you really push these two women and do something with them in the tag team division, as in make them the next tag team champions, then to me it's all for naught. But this match was pretty much just to establish their dominance. These two, the Riot Squad, kind of getting back into the fold of things here in the tag team division. So to finish this thing, Peyton takes a rear chin lock, holds Ruby down for a while, but Kay comes in and Ruby super kicks her and Peyton, and then Liv is tagged in. Liv drops Peyton with running forearms, then drop kicks from the middle rope. Kay breaks the pin attempt and then drags Ruby to the corner and tags herself in. Liv, though, she rolls her up with a small package. 1, 2, 3 for the win. So then after this, Billy Kay and Peyton Royce, they beat down Liv after the match and lift her up. But Ruby runs in and stops it. Riot grabs Kay and waits for Liv so they can hit a double team STO. And the Ruby and Liv leave together. So like I said, it looks like the Riot Squad maybe isn't 100% back to normal, but they're getting there, and I hope that they do push them in the tag team division. So then we get Charlie Caruso backstage, and she says earlier tonight there was a loud noise backstage and it startled the people, but the crew has assured her that it was merely some boxes that fell over. And she's like, there's rumors that they didn't just fall over, that they could have been shoved over. Ooh, somebody's a bad boy running around. MVP appears annoyed that she's reporting this, and then she calms him down and says that Apollo has accepted his challenge at SummerSlam. So MVP's like, oh, okay, legit. And then he says, of course he did, because he knows that he loves his kids. But Shelton Benjamin appears, and then he's like, yo, man, somebody stole my 24/7 championship. MVP says they're going to find it and someone's going to pay, because clearly tonight people are messing with the Hurt business. So Drew McIntyre, he comes to the ring and, he gets right to the point. He says, Randy, you spend a lot of time preying on others' vulnerabilities, and, he's not going to show you how he feels by flipping the bird or throwing an elbow pad into the crowd, dropping the elbow. He's obviously referencing Stone Cold and The Rock. And then he's like, Randy, you think you're better than those guys? And he's like, no. He's like, those guys, at least they would tell you what they're going to do to your face and then do it. You have to sneak in, wait for a guy to finish an Extreme Rules match, hit an RKO, and then act like you're the greatest thing ever. And he's like, that's you. He's like, even after Randy warned him, but it won't happen again. And he said, Drew knows how motivated Randy is, just as motivated as he is to keep his WWE championship. And that's not the only similarity between them. He said at one point, Vince McMahon looked at them both in the eye and told them they were the future, but things didn't go to plan. And he said this wasn't Randy's plan A, it wasn't. He didn't lie awake at night in Scotland trying to figure out how he'd go to America, let alone get into the WWE and become champion. It was easy for Randy. It was handed to him because of his dad. And then Drew says that he never rode in a limo with Evolution. Not that I'd ever want to. I thought that line was pretty legit. And then he said that he never had anyone cleaning up after his screw-ups. Unlike Randy, he was punished and fired for his mistakes. He has spoken to so many people in WWE through the years, and he saw it for himself. Who says Randy would have been fired way more times than he was? And that's when Randy comes to the stage alongside Ric Flair, and Randy says that that's where he's going to stop Drew and asks if his respect is enough. He told everyone last week how much he respects Drew, and in return, this is what Drew has to say. And then Randy says that if they were true and he wouldn't be here, he's made his money, or that if his love for the business wasn't there, would he be here? And Randy says that clearly, he is here because he does love what he's doing. He's like, I've made my money. He's like, but I love RKOing people and punt kicking heads more than that. And he said that what Drew has said will make it easier for him to do just those two things, RKO and a punt kick, so he can win the WWE Championship. And then Drew says that he should have been fired. And yeah, he was right. They should have been fired. But why wasn't he? Because he's valuable, far more valuable than Drew has or ever will be. He's given second, third, fourth, fifth chances because he's the real chosen one. Then, now, and forever. Randy says it's cute that Drew's quoting everyone about his life and career, but how about he comes up with an original thought of his own? So then McIntyre says Randy represents everything wrong with WWE. He watched the Last Ride documentary, and he remembers when Orton says The Undertaker reached down and pulled them up to his level. And he's like, how come you've never done that with anyone, Randy? You've never pulled anyone up to your level. Ali, Apollo, Kevin Owens, or Edge, any of these guys, you rely on these veterans to pull you up, but you never pull these younger guys up. And he's like, I remember when my life was crumbling down and my mother was sick. And he's like, I was just in a real self-destructive spot and spiraling. And, Randy Orton, a locker room leader, supposedly just walked past. He's like, he didn't care. He didn't, check. So he's like, you're nothing but a selfish prick. And at SummerSlam, he has receipts from himself, guys from the current and past roster, and he's going to rip his head off for all of them. So great emotional promo, great, fiery promo from both of these guys. I'm really excited for their match at SummerSlam. I hope Drew retains, but, we'll get into all their previews and predictions like we always do come the previews and predictions show for SummerSlam. So then Nia Jax, she's backstage with an official, the same one she attacked last week, and then she'll be out after the commercial break. So then we get Owen. He's backstage with Ruby and Liv. Ric Flair walks up. He's like, hey, can I get a word here? And he said, hey, I've been following your career forever, Kevin. He's like, you're a hell of a wrestler. You're loved by everyone in the company. But he's like, I think you're turning into a guidance counselor, more concerned with helping others than actually helping yourself in wrestling. And Owen says that he appreciates that, but it's not what he's doing. He just wanted to help Liv and Ruby because he's hurt a lot of people. He's trying to make a difference, in other people's lives and take a different path. And he's trying to be the opposite of Randy Orton. So Flair tells him, hey, why don't you take care of yourself and boost your own career for a change? And Owen says that if he's so concerned, about my career, how about you watch my career as I beat Randy Orton next week? So that match gets signed for next week. That should be good. Probably just be a stepping stone for Randy. He'll take out Kevin, or there'll be some kind of, screwiness, but that should be an interesting match because we actually get to see Kevin Owens wrestle. So Nia Jax is in the ring with Pat Buck and the official she attacked last week. And she pretty much just goes on and on. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Pat, you're a little, ginger piece of shit. You shouldn't be in my way. And, Nia Jax says that, he can have it after the match. And she says that she'll start slow. And that's if its small legs can keep up. And Buck says he's going to leave Nia. And she's like, what, are you scared? And then she says that she figured he'd have more fire, and then she, slams the microphone in his chest. So Pat says that he indefinitely suspends her without pay. So she gets angry, headbutts him, kicks him from the ring, pretty much just starts screaming, walking off. Do we care? No, Nia Jax, please. I hope this is real. I hope this isn't a work for the show. I hope you are suspended indefinitely because literally no one will miss you. There's negative people who will miss you. So then we get the 24/7 championship match. Shelton Benjamin with MVP and Bobby Lashley at his side versus R-Truth versus Akira Tozawa with the Ninjas. Do you care? I thought they didn't know where the 24/7 championship was. Now all of a sudden we it's found and we have a match, but it's stolen by the Ninjas. Or the Ninjas the new faction? Who the hell cares? But Tozawa hits a senton on R-Truth. 1, 2, 3. He wins the belt. Next. Shane McMahon is now backstage in the ring with no ropes. Now we're finally seeing what's going on here. And then two guys are beating the hell out of each other, kind of like it's obviously a work, but it's supposed to look like a fight club, like a brawl for all, like an MMA, whatever you want to call it, an underground fighting ring. Dozens of random guys are beating the hell out of each other. And then Shane says that he's back and he's bringing something new to Monday Night Raw. So stay tuned for 10 p.m. for Raw Underground. We saw some like strippers dancing, even though I'm pretty sure they were like all wearing pants. So it's like, okay, is that really, but hey, I mean, I guess they were tight pants. So that's something, but Raw Underground. Okay. So, I mean, hey, I'll get more into it when we actually see some segments from it, but I wasn't too, shocked or thrilled when I first saw this announcement. So let me see a replay last week of when Dominic came to Raw, attacked Rollins, which led to Aleister Black getting his eyes shoved into the steel steps. And then Sarah Schreiber, she interviews Dominic, and she asks why he continues to show up on Raw and put himself at risk. And he says that he might be crazy, but it's understandable why he's doing what he's doing. He watched his father have his eye gouged out, and he's like, if anyone thinks he's crazy now, they're really going to think he's crazy because he's challenging Seth to a match at SummerSlam. So then we get Shayna Baszler, she versus Sasha with Bayley. And this match, I was looking forward to this. I was like, but Shayna's got to win. She's got to win. Maybe not really quick and dominant because obviously Sasha is the Raw Women's Champ. But Shayna should have a pretty, decisive win. And instead we got something completely bullshit. So going to the end of this thing because that's pretty much where the only importance of this happens. Baszler fights out of a submission and then slams Banks into the buckle. Sasha then dodges a shoulder and kicks Baszler back, but then she gets hit with a rollout dominator. Baszler puts Sasha hands down on the mat and then stomps Banks and then reverses into a Banks statement, but Baszler fights out of it and lifts Sasha and gets hit with a head scissors. Banks then kicks Shayna, but then she fires back with a headlock, or a head kick, excuse me. And then both women are down, and then out comes Asuka. And Asuka just attacks Bayley, slams her into the barricade. Okay, maybe cause a distraction, maybe whatever, just building up, because of what she did to Kairi Sane. But then this causes, the bell rings, ding, 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 and it's like it's over. So Sasha wins by DQ, and it's like, okay, that's, like I said, the match itself was, wasn't bad. It was all right. Shane is obviously legit. Sasha can wrestle. And then it ends in a DQ. So it's like, okay, I guess it keeps everything going, but it was just such a weird and awkward finish at the match. I don't know. But then moving on, then we get Asuka. She's in the ring with Charlie. And then we see a replay of everything that happened last week. The same thing, pretty much. They just show when she beat Asuka and they beat up Kairi and this and that. And then Charlie asks if there's an update on Kairi. And then Asuka says that, Kairi's okay. And then she talks about Bayley, but then out comes Shayna. And then she's like, hey, I'm rooting for you to win, the Raw Women's Championship. And she's like, it's going to be exciting to dismember you and then take that title from you, which is pretty much how this should have gone in the first place. And then Sasha and Bayley, they come back out, which was weird editing because they went back. And then when they were done talking, they came back out. So, but it was just like weird video cuts. And I don't know if it was editing or just, it just didn't look good here. So then they come back out, they laugh, and she's like, this Raw Women's Championship, it belongs to me. Neither of you can have it. Okay, whatever. So then we get Angel Garza. He's backstage with a girl, I believe her name was Demi from The Bachelor, who really gives a flying fuck at this point. I am so fed up with this, like, bringing in bullshit, like D-rank celebrities nobody gives a shit about. So he gives her a rose because he has to fuck everything that moves. And Vega walks up and she's like, hey, she doesn't belong here. And he's like, oh, but she's my friend. Yeah, sure, your friend. But then she's like, I'll find her a seat for the match. Let's go. So then Shane McMahon, he's in his underground. We go back to Raw Underground, I guess you could say. He's watching this match, and then he walks past. Like I said, these girls are dancing. And he's like, if you like what you see, then just wait, and you'll see more on Raw Underground. So then Shane's standing there in the ring, and he welcomes us to Raw Underground. So here we go. And he says things are dangerous. They're exciting. Things he likes to see. He introduces a huge guy onto the mat, and there's another guy, and he's like, ring the bell. I believe the huge guy had a name. Name really wasn't important because who the hell is he? Who the hell cares? The smaller guy misses a flying knee. He gets beaten down. Boom, boom, boom. The big guy, long story short, the big guy beats the hell out of him. The age-old story. Shane holds up his hands, and he's like, subscribe to Rope Break. So then after that, the Street Profits, they come to the ring. Montez Ford, he takes a drink of his cup, and he looks kind of funny at it, like, oh, man, who put the lean is a little too strong in here. I don't know what the hell's going on. I wanted to smoke, but not this. And then Ford asks Dawkins if he remembers last week when Andrade and Garza attacked him at the commentary table. Dawkins says that he does, but he's more interested in Garza's little bachelor friend backstage. And then Ford, he makes fun of Garza's velvet tracksuit and says that they put on the test tonight against the Profits. They're a real team, unlike Andrade and Garza. Dawkins and Ford are family, and Ford says that they attacked him and his brother twice, so they're done playing nice because they're up and they want the smoke. So now we get 2 singles matches out of this. It's supposed to be, it was Angel Garza versus Angelo Dawkins, and then we got Andrade going against Montez Ford. So the first match was Garza versus Angelo Dawkins, and this match, it wasn't bad. I mean, Dawkins isn't that bad. To me, the star of the team, like we've always been saying, is Montez Ford. Obviously, Garza's a hell of a wrestler. Same with Andrade. But this first match, none of these 2 matches were actually that long. But to skip to the end of this thing, Dawkins hits a spinning splash in the corner and then a bulldog. And suddenly at ringside, Montez Ford, he kind of just falls over. And then, it's like, oh, what the hell's going on? Maybe it was what was in his drink. Who knows what's actually happening. So Dawkins is distracted. And then Garza, he hits a super kick. And then he drop kicks him in the head after that. So he gets the 1, 2, 3. So then Ford is sitting by the announce table. And he's kind of like, he looks really out of it. Dawkins goes out to check on him as they go to the commercial break. And then he's like, hey, getting him ready. Like, are you good? Can you wrestle? You have a match with Andrade coming up. So then we get this match. And then this was actually, like I said, this was really good. I guess, Ford, he kind of shook off what was ever bothering him. And then to go into, again, to the end of this thing, Ford runs at Andrade, but he gets kicked in the chest. Andrade goes to the middle rope. Ford hits a drop kick that sends Andrade crashing to the floor. Ford hits a big tope and then runs back into the ring. And, of course, he shakes the ropes, Ultimate Warrior style. And he's like, duh. And then after that, he's like, ugh. And he just kind of, like, passes out. The ref immediately goes on him and is like, no, he's done. Andrade gets in the ring like, hey, is he done or do I got to keep kicking his ass? Dawkins gets in the ring and it's like, hey, man, let him go. The ref, medical staff is like, Andrade, bro, it's good. Like, you won, it's done. So then obviously, even though I said he won, this thing is technically, I guess you could say, no contest. And Andrade and Garza, they come to the ring. And like I said, everybody's looking at him, making sure he's all good. And then we see Buddy Murphy. He's backstage and he's like, I think he's watching on his phone, probably on, WWE's YouTube. But it's the attack on Aleister Black last week. And then Rollins says that he made the right decision and that he should be proud of himself. The past is the past, and tonight they must focus on Murphy or on the future. Murphy asks Seth if he's, given thought to Dominic's challenge at SummerSlam and says it's ridiculous because he's never had a match. And Rollins smiles and just walks off. So then when we go back, we're at the Underground and Shane is standing there, again with the dancers. And now we see Eric from the Viking Raiders. He's there. He beats up some dude, slam, German suplex. He hits that huge knee, and that pretty much ends the thing. Shane is like, yo, Eric, hey, man, you're legit. And he's like, this is what can happen. Anything, anybody from Monday Night Raw can come down here. It's anything. It's madness. It's Raw Underground. It's the Brawl for Raw or the Brawl for All or whatever you want to call it. These women dancing, you call it the Brawl for Raw. But Charlie Caruso, again, she's outside the trainer's room. She says that there's no update. Angel Garza walks up. Again, he screws anything that moves. And he's like, hey, I know that you are scared, but you shouldn't be. People like him. and her should open their hearts and love and laughter. And it's like, what? It's like, okay, dude, like I get it, but it's like, what does this really have to do with what's going on here? And then he hands her a rose, and Zelina and Andrade, they show up, and, she's like, oh, yeah, she kind of acts like she's concerned for Montez Ford. And then she's asked, pretty much just what's happening with the Raw Tag Team Championships, because she just wants the gold. So then Angelo Dawkins comes out of the room. He's no like, oh, yo, what's going on, man? He like real just like, so. And he's like, yeah, Montez, we think he was poisoned. We don't know what's going on. That's what the doctors are saying. So then they're like, poisoned, the three heels are looking around like, what the hell does he mean? So Bianca Belair, she comes out. She asks Zelina, she's like, what'd you do? What'd you poison him with? Vega's like, I didn't do anything. I'm legit, this and that. She's like, listen, I don't want to. She's like, she's like, I don't want to hear it again. She's like, tell me what you did, and then we're done. She's like, I know how you work. I know you're the brains of this. And she's like, yeah, I am the brains. And, I'm the one who, and she's just kind of making excuses. And as she's saying this, I love this. Bianca's just like, okay, bitch. She's taking off her earrings, setting them down. She's like, all right. And as soon as she takes off her earrings, boom, 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 starts laying into Zelina. They, the guys pull them apart. And I mean, that I thought was really cool. So like Bianca, I mean, if this is her role, I mean, at least she'll be, this is a way to hopefully get her into something. But I think you really got to get her in the tag team or in the women's division, after SummerSlam. SummerSlam, you're not going to fit her in anything now. But after SummerSlam, you really got to get into it, because she's such a good promo, a good worker, good wrestler. Everything about Bianca is all upside. So then the announcers, they show us a security footage from earlier today, and we got like a group of, I think it was like 5 or 6 guys are just throwing Molotov cocktails at I think it was like a power generator or something outside. And it's like, okay, well, there's 5, 6 guys. So that proves it's not Undisputed Era. A lot of people were thinking, some people were even hoping. God, I don't know why you would hope that, but it definitely doesn't look like it's going to be them. Are they the new faction that was supposed to debut? I mean, this is an appearance, not a debut, because they didn't reveal themselves at all. But hey, that's Monday Night Raw for you, the land of empty promises and a 3-hour show that we wish was a hell of a lot shorter. So then we get MVP, Lashley, and Shelton. They're walking backstage in suits. And then, of course, because like I said, there's only one, maybe 2 interviewers on this thing, Charlie appears. And she's like, hey, I know you guys have had a really shitty night. I know your whole world is drink. And then MVP says that, yeah, things have been drink, but it's not our fault, because there's mysterious stuff going on affecting everybody. It's all around WWE tonight. Charlie is concerned. And then she says, Shelton says that it's a pretty big coincidence that all this stuff is happening the same night Shane McMahon started his Raw Underground. So then, MVP's like, hey, I got an idea. Come on, boys, let's go. So then next week, they announce Randy Orton faces Kevin Owens. Asuka challenges Bayley. And if she can beat Bayley, then she gets her chance at Sasha at SummerSlam. So then we see I think it's the same video package that they showed before the Eye for an Eye match, because this video package ended advertising Eye for an Eye. So that I really didn't get. And then, like I said, I don't know what you couldn't just do another video package. It was the same thing like how we saw the Bayley, Asuka, and Sasha video package. They showed that thing twice tonight. So it didn't really make any sense. And then after that, Seth comes out to the ring with Buddy Murphy. And Rollins says that before he addresses Dominic, he has some housekeeping to tend to. Seth says that he has a few questions for Tom Phillips, and he asks if he considers himself a true professional, if he's an unbiased journalist, and if he takes pride in his job. Seth moves to the announce table and stares at Tom and says last week when Dominic attacked him with the kendo sticks, Philip cheered him on. Seth says that Tom's voice matters and he's part of the greater good, and that he should call it down the middle. Otherwise, he's a liability, and the time has come to find a new voice for Monday Night Raw. And then Rollins interrupts Murphy to take Tom Phillips, pretty much just, take him to the back, beat him up, whatever they're going to do. So then Murphy walks up, and Samoa Joe stands up, and he's like, no, that's not going to happen. And then they're like, well, what the hell? What are you doing? And he's like, what do you think? You're going to just come here and beat up one of my colleagues? Like, no, if you I wouldn't mess with Samoa Joe, you know what I mean? And this was cool to see Samoa Joe get up. He looked good. And then So he's like, go back to the ring, or I'll just slap the hell out of you. And then he's like, if you got a problem with Tom, like I say, you got a problem with me. And he's like, he was laughing more than anybody when Dominic whipped him with a kendo stick. Seth tells Joe that he doesn't want to do this, but Joe says that he does, and he takes his headset off. Rollins and Murphy run back into the ring, and Seth tells Joe to come and get them. Joe takes off his jacket and smiles. So then when we return from the commercial, Joe is still on the outside of the ring, but both Murphy and Rollins have steel chairs. Dominic runs in from behind and hits Seth with the kendo stick, and then Seth grabs it and swings, but he misses and hits Murphy. Dominic then knocks Seth down and hits a 619. Dominic gets on the top rope and then jumps onto both of them, and then he gets back inside, grabs a steel chair. Seth is furious and says Dominic has his match at SummerSlam. So that was really cool, maybe a little teaser of Joe maybe getting back into some action sooner than later. Hopefully, Dominic coming here, this solidifies the match at SummerSlam. So this segment I really did like. So then we're back in the underground. We see Dolph Ziggler. He's wrestling. Apparently he was a good wrestler in college or something, so that's pretty cool. He beats this guy. And then MVP, Lashley, and Shelton, they appear. Lashley gets onto the mat. MVP has an announcement to make. Raw Underground is now under management of the Hurt Business. So let's get things started with the CEO. So Lashley takes off his shirt. Some random guy steps in the ring. Lashley is probably the one dude on the roster, not counting Brock Lesnar, who I would not want to fight. This dude volunteered. He gets in the ring. Lashley freaking drops this dude on his back and then knocks him out with a right hand. Like I said, it's all a work. I wish it was some kind of shoot fighting, but obviously you can't have that because if some guy would beat your star, how does that look? But, they did a pretty good job conveying it here. And then MVP, he's like, yo, hey, I want some of this. I don't want you to have all the fun. So he beats up a little guy and then, judo throw, some elbows, and then Lashley throws him from the ring by his pants belt. And then MVP, he's like, who's next? So then Shelton comes in, and then there's this guy who looked familiar. He was actually the former Raw commentator, Jerry the King Lawler. No, just kidding. It was Dio Madden, so he's in there. So him and Shelton go at it. Unfortunately, even though Dio is bigger, he kind of jobs out here to Shelton. Obviously, you got to keep the Hurt Business looking good. So he beats him down, and then, they all throw him out. And then the Hurt Business, they beat everybody down. Shane McMahon's like, whoa, hey, man, you guys are awesome. You guys can hang out here in Raw Underground as much as you want, because that's the thing. Anything can happen here at Raw Underground. So the Hurt Business, they put their jackets back on, and they stand there. And then Shane's like, you know what? I can't wait for next week. You guys are legit. And then he's like, that's right, because we're the Hurt Business, and business is booming. So, guys, that was a tough show to get through because that's how Monday Night Raw was. These past couple weeks, we've had long matches, one or two interviews sprinkled in there. And it was a good show, a watchable show. This show had about 37,000 fucking segments. It was hard to keep track of, hard to watch, hard to even care. There was a lot of stuff announced, though. Like there was the great promo with McIntyre and Orton, the Raw Underground. I'm not going to completely bury it, even though it's already underground. Ha, ha, ha. But I need to see more of it. This debuting of a faction and just, 5 guys running around throwing Molotov cocktails. Not a faction, not impressive, not good at all. And then just, I don't know, just these storylines kind of floating in mediocrity. Like you had the stuff that I'm kind of maybe interested in the women's tag team division, but that's probably not going to go anywhere. So I don't know. Like I said, Monday Night Raw to me this week was more of a down than an up. And the past couple of weeks I had a little hope. Now my hope's starting to go away. But guys, that's the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you so much for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments. Do you like this Raw? Do you like Raw Underground? Do you like what's going on? Or do you even care? Are you just watching NXT? Are you just watching AEW? Are you pretty much done with the main roster? Definitely let us know. And also, guys, definitely, follow us on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, The Original Rope Break, Twitter, The OG Rope Break, and right here on YouTube for the best content in the YouTube wrestling community, The Original Rope Break. So, guys, stay tuned because we're going to have AEW, NXT, SmackDown, and we're going to have a lot of special stuff this weekend. Last weekend, we took a little break, a little breather, a little R&R, but we're going to be coming hot and heavy this week, guys, so please stay tuned. And as always, click subscribe, do all that stuff. Like I said, I'm going to hammer it in there twice. because, you know, we really want you guys to be a part of the Rope Break family. So, guys, take care. Have a nice day.